Here we are. Can you still hear me?
I can still hear you.
Perfect,
Karim.
perfect,
Pleasure
perfect.
to
Blake,
be here.
thank you for coming here to our podcast studio for Linqto and Global Investor Conference. I know you had a long journey, Blake, from where were you flying in from?
Depends where you start the journey, because on Saturday I was flying from Ibiza to Malaga, then from Malaga to Warsaw, had a couple of hours of sleep, back to the airport, direct flight to Miami. So you might say I'm coming from Ibiza with a stopover in Poland.
I was going to say, if you're coming from Ibiza, I should have started the journey with you.
Yeah, that would be nice, although it's a very different Ibiza nowadays, when it's off-season and very quiet.
Okay. So, interesting background. You have had an experience with being an angel investor, helping a fund, and then looking at portfolio companies, and then seeing a lot of success in various sectors. Walk us through that journey of yours, and why you're here today in Miami at Dcentral. What is it that you're hoping to achieve?
With pleasure, Karim. I love to unpack there. So, in terms of my journey, very early on, I really wanted to focus my career on the energy industry. And I got lucky ending up in EIT InnoEnergy, which was a big venture capital fund focused on clean tech innovation. Back then, I didn't really take a keen interest in the startup ecosystem. I didn't think of myself as an investor. I loved working with founders in early stage. I really believed that's an opportunity to make an impact early on that scales with the company, a way to make a great contribution. But I wasn't exactly loving the dynamics of the energy industry. Very conservative, very non-diverse.
Give me a time frame. When was this?
That was 2015, I believe.
Okay.
And essentially, my heart was growing fond of VC work and working with early stage founders, but I was thinking, first of all, working for a corporate VC, which is great and a lot of high caliber people, but it's different kind of pace than you would see in a private venture capital firm. And also, again, I was thinking that maybe energy industry, it's not where I'm the best cultural fit. And around, I believe, 2017, blockchain started getting into mainstream. And I thought to myself, maybe that's my opportunity to pivot. Seems that very few people have a track record at this point. So maybe it's not a problem that I don't have a blockchain track record, and I can just transfer my skills in supporting founders and talking to extremely technical people, which in the energy industry, pressure engineers, stuff like that, and explaining it in commercial terms, essentially translating the technical minds to commercial minds, that I saw as a transferable skill. So I started just my own advisory practice that I called Beyond Capital, and I was helping founders, banks, financial institutions, syndicates of investors, essentially navigate the crypto landscape and either how to essentially get exposure to crypto or how to leverage crypto in your business model if you're a startup. And then I had a moment of a disappointment in the space. Everybody was saying institutional money is coming, institutional money is coming. It wasn't coming.
Institutional money into what?
Into crypto.
Okay.
And that was supposed to be the wave of adoption, right? That will follow. And I have to say, it was still very technical people in the room at this point. So I got a bit disencouraged, and I moved to Indonesia, where I learned programming. I was always very insecure that I don't know code, and I still don't consider myself a software engineer, but at least I can read a little bit of code or write a simple trading bot. And from then I got recruited by Uber, and I moved to Colombia, where I helped Uber introduce Uber Eats to Central America and the Caribbean. I was hoping that Uber will be some sort of segue for me to get work authorization in the US, so I can maybe try my hand at the VC game in the Silicon Valley. But then COVID made it painfully impossible, and ended up locking me up in Colombia, which was a very hard lockdown. So I managed to escape on a humanitarian flight organized by the Embassy of Austria, back to Europe.
It was so bad.
It was very bad. Colombia lockdown, even though it's not spoken of a lot, it was actually much higher level of restrictions than the Italian lockdown, in a way that at a certain point it got so bad because there was so much sexual crime in the streets, because the police presence was reduced, that based on your gender, you can either go out on an odd or even day of the calendar, And then they added one more prevention to that. Based on the last number in your ID, whether it's odd or even, the grocery stores would serve you or not. So it was very restrictive, and getting out of the country wasn't easy. All the flights were kind of grounded. But I managed to relocate back to Europe, and I reignited my practice. I started working with venture capital funds again as an consultant. But then I kept deploying as an angel investor, and I ended up starting the conversation, but also deploying within the portfolio of Outlier Ventures, and that brought me to work with them full time. First, spinning out their first partnership-based program, which was Falcon Basecamp, and I ran 2 editions of Falcon Basecamp with Outlier Ventures, accelerating 17 amazing teams in total. And currently, I've taken on a new challenge, given my track record as an angel investor, as well as track record of working with large organizations. And currently, I have the pleasure of expressing my passion and interest in Web3 digital fashion by leading the execution efforts for our partner Farfetch on the Farfetch Dream Assembly Basecamp, which is the outcome of collaboration between Farfetch and Outlier Ventures.
Farfetch is a Portuguese company.
Farfetch started as a Portuguese company. I believe their headquarters are in London. They have a heavy presence in the US. The founder is Portuguese, but the company is international by all means, also public entity. Essentially, my views do not represent the views of Farfetch, but for me it was very clear that they made their fortune, so to say, by introducing luxury brands from brick and mortar to e-commerce. So now that bet on Web3 and becoming that bridge between Web2 and Web3 for luxury brands is a natural extension of that strategy.
So that's great. So that's actually a good use case for a particular industry vertical that has seen success in Web3.
I would say so. I'm also a big advocate of NFT as a technology that changes fundamentals. I do have a feeling that nowadays people got so captivated by the narrative of profile picture NFTs, the money made in that kind of sector, and slightly speculative nature on selling and trading those assets, and people associate NFTs with that. To me, NFT is a technology, a format. The profile picture craze was one of the use cases and kind of the moment that brought the attention to the format. But we've seen NFTs tackle the music industry, we've seen it tackle the sports industry, but I do have to say, in fashion, it really does change fundamentals to an extent, and when it comes to defining the future of luxury, NFTs allow for giving digital properties the qualities of a physical object. So suddenly you can create digital scarcity. If you can create digital scarcity, you can create digital luxury. How do you define luxury you cannot touch? These are very interesting questions.
So actually that's very interesting because there is the feeling that NFTs, from the evolution of just the JPEG and the valuation of JPEG, there's a lot of hype around the industry. A lot of people lost money, but that means some people made a lot of money. There has to be a clarity now what actually an NFT is and can do in conjunction with blockchain technologies. So when you look at your background in angel investing, it's being able to scout out what the emerging technologies and use cases are. So if you were to look at that today, apart from the fashion industry, where do you see the next evolution over the next 12 to 24 months of NFTs?
Of NFTs specifically? Well, I'm not sure if it can happen in the next 12 months, but I do believe the real point of adoption that I'm waiting for is where users in the general population are using NFTs for a variety of use cases without even knowing the NFT technology is involved. Kind of like a PDF even. I truly believe using NFTs in the context of finance and decentralized finance is a very interesting use case. Not necessarily my strength, but definitely the strength of Outlier Ventures. We also released a paper on the crossover of those two domains called MetaFi. So I believe that's a very interesting case. In a lot of industries, not only in fashion, and I think the sports example as well as music example, if there is a creator, maybe a performer, some sort of a talent, usually there is a network of secondary actors around them that are kind of benefiting from the flow of value simply by being there as a middleman. And I do believe any type of a setup like that can be disrupted by NFTs. I'm not saying getting those people out of the picture, but perhaps keeping a more transparent way in how the value flows between those actors and how the incentives are aligned.
So in terms of that, in terms of digital assets, transfer, and securities, how do you see the evolution or development within the various continents of the regulation around this, given the recent debacle that we've seen in the markets?
Good question. Regulation, not my core expertise, and definitely my views are not official views of Outlier Ventures. But I do see a couple of examples. For example, Dubai seems to be on this campaign to attract a lot of crypto projects with their jurisdiction, with more relaxed regulation, whereas it seems that in the current stress of time of market stress, as we can call it, Singapore, for example, is showing regulatory teeth. They're kind of showing more prudent approach to regulation. I do believe there is a lot of attention on stable coins because of the Luna debacle, and unfortunately in Europe, some of that attention is unhealthily spilling over to NFTs. Yeah. They're kind of putting it in the same risk bucket, even though it's very different technologies, very different use cases, very different stakeholders. And finally, in the US, I do feel like currently the regulators are coming down hard to show people that they are putting measures in place to prevent stuff like the occurrence in the last months from happening. However, it feels it's much more of a show of strength rather than a long-term thinking tactic. Currently, I do believe Europe is a very friendly place to Web3 founders, and often seeing how teams interact with those regulatory challenges. For example, I was recently surprised that you can release an NFT out of the Netherlands without any problems. That was quite a big surprise to me.
I've seen a lot of European founders actually doing a lot of stuff around NFTs, and etc. Yeah.
So it might be related to regulation, again, not my area of expertise, but...
And what would you like to accomplish yourself in the next 12 months? What would you like to see happen? For your portfolio, or for the next company that you're looking for, what would that be?
So for the next 12 months, and I'm working with a lot of startups. We can talk about my portfolio, but there are also the teams I help accelerate it in Outlier Ventures, and the founders are my friends, and I do feel a bond with them and try to support them any way I see possible. So for them, I would say for the more crypto-heavy part of the portfolio, I would really like to see them going super lean, focusing on building out strong fundamentals and really not getting bogged down by the current market dynamics. Because for them currently, I would say it's crunch time. It's time to get lean, time to really make sure that you're demonstrating a tangible value proposition and again demonstrating business fundamentals.
Let's talk about that a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Being lean is important, but being futuristic and looking a little into the future to see what might work. In your mind, if you're looking for something, what would that be?
Could you rephrase that? I'm not sure I understand the question.
So, you're here at Dcentral on the behalf of Outlier Ventures.
Correct.
And so, what will you hear from a founder or an investor or a developer that will perk your interest immediately? If they say, I am doing this, what would that be?
Well, definitely I'm super happy to be here and very excited to connect with all of the founders working in the Web3 fashion space. Today at Dcentral we have a fashion track, so for me, not only a huge, amazing opportunity to connect with other speakers, but also great opportunity to have all the fashion-interested people kind of gather in one place.
And Miami is a great place for fashion, right?
Exactly. So, stars align. So that's definitely one group that I'm looking to connect with. Very important part of the program is also our mentors. Mentors are external actors, individuals that have a very big, credible track record in the space. So for fashion, we really, with the huge help from Farfetch, we kind of put together an ecosystem of amazing mentors, leading people in the space, that are advising the teams and kind of advising us on which goals we should focus for with the teams.
Yeah.
So I'm meeting the mentors that I often see in the Zoom screen, but not always have the opportunity to see them in real life. We're spending some quality time together. I'm also opening up to potential new mentors, people that I haven't yet connected with, but would be a great fit to kind of support the program efforts. And finally...
So, did you hear? We have to repeat that for everybody. You're looking for exceptional mentors to help grow which business strategy?
The Farfetch Dream Assembly Basecamp, the Web3 luxury fashion accelerator.
Web3 luxury fashion. And we're at the right place.
Exactly.
And a lot of stuff's happening in Web3 luxury fashion. If you want to help, they've got to reach out to you. Blake, how do they find you?
Well, the best way to reach out to me is to talk to me in person at Dcentral. I'll be around all day. You can also DM me on Twitter at BlakeBeyond, or reach out to me on LinkedIn at Blake Lezenski. I'll try to be as responsive as I can. Alternatively, crypto conference, so Telegram at Buddha Blake. Just DM me and I'll try to find some quality time with you here today.
Well, best of luck in what you're trying to do. Is there anything that I missed to ask you that you would like to share?
One more thing that I would like to share, that the maybe less obvious group of stakeholders that I would also like to connect with, is organizations that are interested in running a program with us, Outlier Ventures, in partnership, much like Farfetch. I think this is a great example of what we can accomplish, and if we can identify other amazing partners in different verticals that enable us to kind of seize the go-to-market potential that Farfetch is representing for the Web3 luxury fashion, but in other verticals, I believe the synergies there are endless, and definitely would be happy to talk.
What would be a vertical that comes top to mind apart from fashion?
One that I have in mind is music.
Music?
Yeah, music, sports, for example. We have a DeFi program running with New Order, so as you see, a vertical can be more technical or it can be more sector-specific.
Music and sports. So those are verticals that you're looking to develop more synergistic partnerships with companies or corporations that...
I wouldn't say the starting point is the area of focus. The starting point is the partner, and by means of conversation with the potential partner, we can identify the area that will serve their strategic interest, because in the end of the day, it's about them. And then we can also fit it into a bigger Web3 narrative. So I just mentioned some of the areas that I would consider, but it should be very much tailored to the needs of the partner and their strategic objectives that they're planning to achieve by their exposure to Web3.
Perfect. Blake, thank you so much.
Sure.
It was a pleasure.
Great pleasure.
Perfect.
Really enjoyed the conversation.